What is up, guys? This is QRem from the Trinity of Lift, and today I'm going to bring all of you guys my Zoodiac Madolche deck profile for this March 2017 format. Now then, this deck it makes me very happy to play this deck because I haven't been able to play Madolches to like a high-ish tier in the meta for quite some time, but with the Zoodiacs, they really do boost Madolches up to where I really do feel like you could actually compete at regionals with this deck potentially. But again, sadly, I cannot really give results on that kind of idea because I cannot go to regionals based on where I live. But I mean, I still feel like this deck is pretty good. Now, in terms of this deck profile today, I would like to say that I'm still ironing out some kinks from this build. I do still feel confident enough to make this deck profile for you guys today, but just keep in mind that I'm still not really solidified on my card choices yet. So if you guys have any recommendations or comments, make sure to post them down in the comment section below, because again, I do read all of my comments and I usually will also try and reply to all of them as well. So without further ado, we're just gonna jump right into it, starting off with the main deck as per usual. Alrighty, to start us off, we have, of course, 3 copies of the Angeli because, again, just she's really, really good. And the thing is with Angeli in this deck, actually, too, is that Angeli also functions as kind of like 3 more copies of Terratop in this deck, because rather than going through your generic 1-card Angeli +2 play, where you would just summon Messengelato after your Who Cakes, the thing is now is that you can actually summon Mufuli after your Who Cakes, which is the first card that you're initially going to summon off of this, and with this 1 card, you can actually just make Invoker, which is really, really good, considering the fact that, of course, as we all know, the Zoo cards right now are also really, really strong, and getting to them as fast as can is really good. So because of that, we do have 3 copies of Angeli because she's just such a good starter card in this deck, as always in almost every deck that she's in. So of course, we have 3 copies of Angeli. Then for the next Madolches, we have 2 copies of the Who Cake, 2 copies of Mufuli, and of course 2 copies of Messengelato. Now, the thing is with all 3 of these Madolche monsters is that they're all kind of in the same situation where you don't ever want to draw any of these Madolche monsters. Like, all of these cards are pretty bricky whenever you draw them, but the thing is, you cannot play 1 copy of any of these Madolche monsters either, because you need to always make sure that at least 1 copy of each of these cards is always in your deck for certain combo plays. So because of that, again, all these 3 monsters are just in really awkward situations where you cannot play 1 of them, because then you're inevitably going to just screw up some of your combos if you just end up drawing that 1 of. But you cannot play 3 copies of these cards because, again, similarly, you don't want to draw them anyway. So because of that, I did decide to just run 2 of each and every single one of these extra Madolche monsters because I just felt that was the correct ratio. And I also would like to mention that I'm not playing Magellan at all because I felt like Magellan was just extremely slow and just not really that good in this deck. So yeah. Moving on to the Zoo cards, of course, we have 3 copies of Ratpier and then 1 copy of Whiptail. I am running just the absolute minimum Zoo engine in this deck because, similarly to the Madolches, I feel like more copies than just 1 Whiptail is kind of bricky, because you also don't want to ever draw this card too. You only want to search it off of Broad Bull when it's applicable. So because of that, I only have 1 copy of Whiptail, but the 3 copies of Rat, that's a no-brainer. So yeah, that'll be it for all of the Zoo monsters. Moving on to the other monsters in our deck, we of course also have the Terratop engine, the 3 copies of Terratop and the 1 Takatenborg, because again, this is like the 2nd or 3rd best starter card in the deck after maybe Angeli and of course Zoodiac Barrage. So again, we have 3 copies of Terratop because again, it's just so darn good. Then, also for another card I'm trying to test out right now, I have 1 copy of TG Warwolf. Now, the reason why this card is in here is because it is a Broad Bull search target, so that's also pretty cool. And also the fact that TG Warwolf also is a combo piece alongside your Madolche Angeli, because again, the whole combo is having a free level 3 on board plus Angeli in order to go into your Leviar Tiara Misu board. And again, I just thought that Warwolf could be a good fit in this deck because it is a searchable Broad Bull target, and it also synergizes extremely well with Angeli. So again, we have the 1 copy of TG Warwolf. And then finally, for the last monsters, we have 2 copies of Maxi because it's just really, really strong, this format. So yeah, that'll be it for all of the monsters. Moving on to the spells, of course, we have 3 copies of Zoodiac Barrage because, again, it's just absolutely the best starter card in the game right now. This card is insane, and almost every Zoo deck that is intending to play the Zoo engine should be playing 3 Barrage. And I know that's kind of sad for some people because this card is what really doesn't allow people to deck build with Zoodiacs because of how expensive this card is. But, I mean, hey, if you can afford Zoodiac Barrages, you can just make a ton of cool decks with this card just because of how strong this 1 card is. So again, yeah, we have 3 copies of Barrage. We also have one copy of Tenki. Now, I felt Tenki was in a really weird situation in this deck because you don't want to play 3 because you end up clogging your hands really bad because you don't have a ton of Tenki search targets, but I really didn't want to run 0 because I felt like just having a 4th copy of Barrage was really cool. So that is why I have just 1 copy of Tenki because, again, just 4 copies of Barrage is a lot better than 3. Moving on, we have 1 copy of Ticket and then the 1 copy of Chateau. I will still forever live and die by this ratio. I never will ever run multiples of either of these spells because they're cloggy, but their effects are just so important to your combos sometimes that you just have to play one of each. So yeah, we have 1 copy of each Madolche spell. Then we also have 1 copy of Instant Fusion. Now, debatably, I'd probably run 3 in this deck if I had 3, and this is like one of those rare situations where I actually don't have the cards in hand. But even though the 1 copy is okay, I probably, again, like I said, would want to run 3, maybe 2 copies if I couldn't find room for the 3rd Instant Fusion. But again, because I don't have them, we only have 1 copy in front of you guys today. Moving on to just generic good spells now. I have 2 copies of Night Beam. Now, I would like to say that this spell slot is flexible. You don't have to run Night Beam like I am. The only reason why I'm running Night Beam personally is because at my personal local metagame, a lot of people are only playing, if for their back row anyway, they're only playing 3 copies of D-Barrier and not much else. And not to mention that a lot of the people going to my locals don't play back row decks. So I felt like Twin Twisters is kind of a waste. And again, based on who I play, I felt like Night Beam was the appropriate choice because most of the time, the only back row I'm going to be playing through is just 1 copy of D-Barrier, which Night Beam is just extremely strong against. Although again, if you are intending to play against back row heavy decks, I would say that probably Twin Twisters is the way to go. Again, this slot is flexible and you can just choose whatever spell and trap removal that you want to choose. Moving on, we have 2 copies of My Body as a Shield. Now, the more I play with this card, the more I realize that this card is insane because a lot of people are just playing tons of board clears like Torrential, Mirror Force, the Dark Holes, the Regeki, and all that kind of stuff, as well as also they're playing Zoo, of course. And My Body as a Shield says no to all of those cards. Like, this card is pretty darn good against certain boards and certain proactive board clears, excuse me. So I just really feel like My Body as a Shield is just an extremely good spell card right now to play. So of course I have 2 copies of it in my deck. Next up, we also have the full board clear lineup. We have 2 copies of Dark Hole and the Raigeki. Now, in Zoodiac Madolches, I really feel like because I am personally playing a good amount of defensive rank 4s, I really want to try and get initiative onto the board so that the defensive rank 4s can get the most value. So because of that, I am maxing out on all the board clears, so I can always just make sure that my opponent has as few chances to interrupt my combos as possible. So yeah, we have the 3 board clears. And then finally, for the last spell, of course, we have 1 copy of Upstart Goblin, because if you guys have watched my videos for any prolonged period of time, you guys know that I love my 39 card consistency. Alrighty, moving on to the traps, we of course have 1 copy of Zoodiac Combo just to act as a free draw sometimes and to also help us recycle our resources. We have 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier because this is like by far the best trap in the game right now. Like, this card is nuts. It's like the end turn trap, which essentially whenever you flip it, you end your opponent's turn, which is stupid. Like, we have 3 copies of this card. And of course, finally for the last trap, because I am playing Rafflesia in the extra deck, I am playing 1 copy of Time Space Trap Hole. So yeah, that'll be it for the entire 40 card main deck. Moving on to the extra deck, we have all the Zoo cards. We have 2 copies of Trident, 1 copy of Broad Bull, 1 Tiger Mortar, and then of course 1 copy of Boar Bull. Now, the one of Zoodiac Xyz monsters, they're kind of like, of course you gotta play them because you need to go into your totem pole early so you can go into your Zoodiac plays. But we're also having 2 copies of Trident here. The first one obviously because again, you're gonna be ending your Zoodiac play with a Trident. But we're also playing 2 copies instead of just 1 because in this deck specifically, there are a couple of cute ways to get your extra rats back either from your grave or your banish onto the field again, so that you can make a 2nd copy of Trident over it, through things like Levy or Institute and all that kind of stuff. So because of that, I am playing 2 copies of Trident because the card is just extremely good. Moving on to the other Xyz monsters, we of course have 2 copies of TR Misu because this wouldn't be a Madolche deck without this card. And of course, TR Misu, whenever you just resolve the effect, you just swing the game in your favor. Like, she's just such an insane momentum shifter that, of course, that is the primary reason why you'd be playing Madolches, because of this card primarily. So again, we have 2 copies of TR Misu because she's just really strong. Then for the combo rank 3s, we will of course have one copy of Levier and the one copy of Invoker. Invoker, of course, for all of your generic Madolche combos as well as your Zoodiac plays. And then Levier similarly for all of your Madolche combos as well. So yeah, that'll be it for the combo rank 3s. And then moving on to the just generic good Xyz monsters in our deck. We have one copy of Rafflesia because like I said, we have time space and this is just a really good defensive rank 4. We have one copy of Dagusto Emerald because recycling resources is important. We have one copy of Castel because problem removal is important as well. We have one copy of Breaksword for the same reason that we have Castel in here, but it's a rank 3. And then finally for the last rank 3, we have one copy of Totem Bird because again, Smelling Trap Negation is really important to stop things like Zoodiac Barrage and Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. And then of course finally for the last extra deck monster, we have one copy of Norden because we have Instant Fusion. Alright guys, so that will be it for my entire Zoodiac Madolche deck profile. Again, like I said at the beginning of this video, this deck is still a kind of work in progress. Like, a lot of the card choices are finalized, but I'm still tweaking a couple of ratios like the Madolche monsters and some of the good spells like the Night Beam and the My Body is a Shield. But outside of that, I am very happy with how this deck plays, and it's a lot of fun. If you do have these cards, I would highly recommend trying it out in real life, or maybe on yugioh Pro if you don't want to try and invest into this deck. But again, as always, I hope you all very much enjoyed this video, and as always, this is QRem from the Trinity of Lift, and I'll see all of you guys later. Peace out.